Over the last 15 years, I've written about 1,000 songs, and no, I did not release them all, but each one of them was a lesson in its own right. And of those 1,000 lessons, while I was building this music studio that I'm sitting in, composing all these tracks, and going down countless other creative rabbit holes of different styles, such as game development or visual arts, it dawned on me that there are a handful of fundamental principles that, if ignored, could cost you years in your creative development. So whether you're making music, developing games, or doing any creative work, these are the lessons that I wish I would have known sooner. Especially number 3, because that one almost made me quit completely. So let's start out with the one that held me back the longest: consuming instead of creating. I used to think that tutorials and reading music theory was progress because it made me feel like I was moving forward. But the problem is, I wasn't actually creating or experimenting. I was just stockpiling knowledge and calling it growth. The shift happened when I made a simple rule for myself: create first, research as a reward for creation. And that completely flipped everything. Suddenly, all my knowledge had context, and the results started to come a lot faster. The second trap is avoiding discomfort. I was absolutely obsessed with being ready or finished with learning a certain skill or task before I moved on to something new. And I didn't really think about this at the time, but I always actively avoided anything that I wasn't already skilled at because I didn't like the feeling of being new or struggling. But the problem with that is that progress lives within discomfort. And every real breakthrough that I've ever had always came from leaning into something that was new and awkward and difficult. So all that's to say, if it's uncomfortable creatively, it's probably worth doing. So don't chase ease, chase friction. That's where the good stuff is. Number 3 is one that I'm sure you guys are familiar with, and that is the need for external approval. For many years, I actively sought out external approval as a sign to show me that I was doing the right thing and I was headed the right direction. I got lessons in hopes that my teachers would say, "You're doing great," and I would show my music to other people and my work to other people, and always I just wanted someone to say, "Wow, you're doing good, you're doing the right thing." It's weird because it's like that it's not good to do that, but you don't understand why. And I didn't understand why until one night I was laying in bed watching a documentary on one of my favorite composers, Danny Elfman. And in this documentary, there's an interview, and the interviewer is very, very well spoken, eloquent, and the interviewer gives him a really well thought out question. And it's basically summarized by saying, what's a philosophy you had back then when you were popping off and blowing up? What philosophy from then still carries through to now? In other words, what's your through line for your outlook on creativity? And it was so incredible because basically after that beautiful question, he says, "Fuck them all." And it was really poignant and sharp, but for whatever reason, it resonated with me super well because it showed me that in a way he was saying only I know what is right for me. Only I know what is going to change the world from my perspective. In a funny way, it was kind of arrogant, but it's actually not. If you think about it, it's just him saying, "I know what's good. I know what I like." And when I started thinking like that, thinking in that framework, right, that confidence that gives you and that perspective that gives you, it's restorative to the soul, and you don't have to be as aggressive with it if you don't want to be. But my advice in regards to this one is that you should know that you are doing the right thing. Never question it. Don't go down that dark rabbit hole. Don't second guess yourself. Don't second guess your work. Say, this is a progression. I have a plan. It's going to take time. Everything takes time. But when I execute this plan correctly, it will be what I want and people will understand it. Number 4 is kind of sneaky because it's a double-edged problem. Basically, it's learning without a goal. In the age of technology where you can learn any amount of things that you want to learn, like with AI or YouTube, it becomes extremely easy to just sort of become invested in acquiring as much knowledge as you can about a topic. And the only way that that's actually good is if you have a goal that you're going to apply that knowledge to. Like, for example, me binge watching orchestration videos or whatever might be fun and entertaining, but unless I'm actively going and applying those techniques I'm learning, it's really going in one ear and out the other. So how do you make it productive and not just procrastination in disguise? Basically, you only research and watch things directly related to the thing that you're doing. So if you have a creative idea that there are knowledge roadblocks between you and it, that's a perfect example of a time to learn something, right? But if you're just like sort of consuming arbitrary knowledge in a field, while you may come out on the other side with some degree of inspiration, you're more than likely just procrastinating doing the actual work. And number 5 is measuring your progress by what you know versus what you've made. For a long time, I felt really smart because I had acquired all of this knowledge. And it took me a long time to realize that the actual value in my work was the work itself, not the theoretical stuff that lived only inside of my mind, but the stuff that I got to share with the people around me and enjoy later on as time went on. All that work that I look back on now is like a time capsule to a certain part of my life and connects me to specific people. And don't get me wrong, knowledge is very useful, but at the end of the day, creative output is the actual scoreboard. And so that should be how you measure your success and your progress. So that's to say you have to finish things, even if they suck. And actually, especially if they suck, you need to finish them. I would say most of the time, the biggest lessons I learned were from pushing through with stuff that I thought wasn't very good. And oh yeah, I need to say one more thing. I was only going to do 5, but let's just call this a bonus mistake, right? For a long time, I was constantly using external material as inspiration, which can be very valuable, right? But it also is a dangerous road to walk, because at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, like, am I copying or am I exploring? And I realize that it's a thin line between those things, but it is important for you to have that guiding star in your mind of, I am not actively trying to copy anything. I'm not reproducing somebody else's ideas. I'm drawing inspiration, and then I'm exploring those ideas through my own lens. In other words, you want to use references to refine, not define your work. So if any of this hit home, good. That means you're fighting the good fight. Creativity is hard, but if you're brave enough to create first, lean into discomfort, and finish things even when they're messy, you will lap the version of yourself that's still reading books and waiting for that perfect moment to make something.